since President Biden took office, have you noticed a tangible difference in the farming industry?
A huge mark in the farming industry since Biden took office. But the mainstream media isn't going to tell you that because they don't want you to think there's a problem. But I will say when Trump was in office, I mean,
oh, for 4 years, our grain prices, everything was the same.
Everything was the same.
It never went up.
People were starting to come to the
it went down a
farms
little
because they
bit.
want to know where their food comes from, and regulations were low.
Will there be enough food on the Thanksgiving table? That is the question a lot of Americans might be asking this year. After months of skyrocketing inflation, it looks like Thanksgiving this year will cost more than any previous year by far. New data from the Farm Bureau shows that the cost of turkey is up 24%. The USDA is also reporting that inventories of frozen turkeys are down 24% this year as well. Other Thanksgiving staples are also more expensive. The price of rolls has increased 15%. The cost of cranberry sauce is up 11%. And the price of pie crust is over 20% more expensive this year. Altogether, that means Thanksgiving dinner will cost about 13% more than it did just 1 year ago. A few short months ago, the Biden administration was in hot water for tweeting about Americans saving 16 cents on their Independence Day barbecues. A graphic published by the White House's Twitter account listed various 4th of July staples and their apparent reductions in cost. $1.90 for pork and beans, down 13% since last year. $3.65 for lemonade, that's down a whole 2% since last year. $4.93 for a bag of chips, down a whopping and very consequential 1% since last year. The Post revealed that President Biden and his team were pretty out of touch with the worsening inflationary pressures facing everyday Americans. Translation, things were starting to cost more. Since that infamous post, inflation has climbed to 6.2%, meaning that price levels this year are dramatically higher than last year as we head into the holiday season. Inflation is quite literally destroying the purchasing power of money over time. If it stays at 2% per year, which is what the Federal Reserve says they target, then the value of every dollar will diminish by 2% each year. For someone who's earning a $50,000 salary, that's like losing $1,000. If pay increases at the same rate as inflation, though, higher prices won't make a noticeable impact. But that's not what we're experiencing right now. Inflation is far outpacing wage growth, which means that most Americans are feeling the squeeze of higher prices, predominantly at grocery stores and gas stations. Most people have probably noticed that. But there isn't actually more money coming in as things start to cost more. A recent New York Times report said that Thanksgiving 2021 is shaping up to be the most expensive meal in the history of the holiday. One study found that food prices are up 4.6% from last year. Another noted that prices for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs, although I don't know who's serving fish at Thanksgiving, but I digress, those prices were up 10.5%. Cereals and bakery products are up 2.7%, fruits and vegetables up 3%, and non-alcoholic beverages up 3.7%. This means that the price of turkey itself will be higher this year, with some reports showing that fresh turkey production this year will be down 1.4%, possibly due to the high price of corn used to feed the birds and also the labor shortage. I wanted to go straight to the source to hear about the impact that rising prices and inflation and the labor shortage are all having on the people that produce our food, farmers. So I went to talk to Chris and Sue Ellen Simpson at Field of Dreams Farm in Tennessee to hear what they had to say. So we're at Field of Dreams Farm here. I'm joined by Chris Simpson. This is your farm. Thanks for having us out.
My pleasure.
What all do we harvest here? What do we got?
Well, we have duck, we have chicken, we have laying hens for eggs, we have beef, we have pork, we do some lamb, and we do some rabbit.
Now you got to show me.
Yes,
Let's
indeed,
go look at
we
it.
do. Let's go.
So what kind of price increase have we seen so far this year compared to last year for turkey prices?
We've had 3 different businesses call us because they couldn't get their holiday turkeys for their employees from Kroger, Publix, name the grocery store.
So there might be some people this year that have either already gone to get a turkey or are going to get one, and they might be surprised by the price or the lack of choice they have when they do go to shop if they wait till the last
They're
minute.
getting surprised right now. You know, a turkey that was $30 last year is now $65, $70.
And why is it so much more expensive?
Well, I mean, supply and demand. So the supply is minimal and the demand is high. And so the markets are jacking that price up because, they can and they're getting it for it.
So this year, what's been different than in years past? Obviously, we hear about the supply chain backlogs. We hear about shortages across the board. Has the labor shortage impacted the farm here in your operation?
The shortage of labor when it comes to processing plants, the shortage of labor when it comes to trucking these birds from the farm to the processing, from the processing to the market. I don't think they're producing any less. I think they're having problems getting it from farm to processor, processor to the store.
Since President Biden took office, have you noticed a tangible difference in the farming industry?
A huge mark in the farming industry since Biden took office. Just go down the list. Fuel prices. We
Grain
drive these
costs.
ATVs.
Oh, God.
Grain cost. Because of the fuel prices, and I'm sure other factors as well. I mean, beef's going out the roof right now. And so everybody's going to jump in on the beef market, and then it's going to push it. Well, there's going to be there's just this cyclical up and down. And I don't want to be a part of that.
Has inflation played a role have you guys noticed inflation at all in
It
your
is
industry?
eaten into our profit margins this year.
That's why we have a custom ration for the turkeys or meat birds, like everything. And it's been about $4 extra per 100 pounds. And we go through thousands and thousands. So at the end of
adds
the
up.
year, I figure it's going to be at least an extra $2,000 to $3,000 in feed cost, at least.
Like The Simpsons, grocery stores and other food suppliers have a choice. Do they let inflation eat into their own profits, or do they charge customers more to cover the cost? As it turns out, companies like Walmart are learning that shoppers are more than willing to hold their nose and absorb higher prices. The retail giant reported a 9.2% increase in sales between its third quarter in 2020 and its third quarter in 2021. And revenue likewise rose by 4.3% to $140.5 billion. Now, obviously, most Americans aren't thrilled about shelling out more of their cash to pay for a Thanksgiving feast, but will anything change in the near future? As far as the federal government is concerned, things don't look good on that front. Joe Biden recently signed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill into law, and there could be trillions more in government spending soon, which is going to mean even more inflation as there are more dollars entering the market. The Biden administration has continued to dismiss concerns about high prices and how their policies are actually making matters worse. When a reporter asked White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki about the urgency of inflation, she dismissed it as nothing more than a, quote, political cudgel.
First, let me say that, a lot of the talk about inflation, I'm not saying from you, but in general out there, has been, it's become a political cudgel, and it shouldn't be.
But in the next breath, she also claimed that economists don't expect increased spending to add to inflation. In fact, she said the new bills would actually ease inflationary pressure in the long term.
The Build Back Better bill that we are working to move forward will not add to inflationary pressure and will ease inflationary pressure over the long term.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and National Economic Council Director Brian Deese repeated that same narrative, that pumping more money and even more dollars into the economy through massive social welfare packages will somehow make prices lower for American families. Despite the government's claims, inflation is typically most pronounced for low-income earners who have more of their wealth saved in cash or checking and savings accounts. Wealthier families are less likely to be affected because they have retirement accounts, property, or other assets that can increase in value over time and beat out inflation. Working-class Americans typically spend a higher portion of their budgets on food, fuel, and other basic necessities, and those are the items that are rising in cost thanks to inflation, or thanks to Bidenflation. But it isn't just government spending that's affecting food prices. A proposed tax on cattle in the name of fighting carbon emissions through their flatulence could actually make food shortages even worse. As always, those who prefer big government programs to supposedly help the poor are going to end up hurting the poor. It looks like this Thanksgiving will once again be no different. I'm Cabba Phillips with the Daily Wire. Thanks for watching.